Hello and welcome to the Korean Beauty Show podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Lee, lawyer turned entrepreneur and founder of Korean skincare brand Jellyco. If you want to keep up to date with all the latest Korean beauty trends and perfect your own routine in the process, then you are in the right place. On this show, I translate all the latest industry news to let you know what's going on in the industry in Korea and globally. On today's episode, we are covering the top trends at Cosmoprof Asia, the small dose cosmetics trend, how social media created the beauty industry's newest dialect, and more. So just a heads up as well that this will be our last news headlines episode for 2024, and there are a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost is that for the rest of the year, what I want to do is take a look back at some of this year's biggest trends and also take a look forward as to what's in store for 2025 as well. The other thing is that my podcast editing team and I will both be taking a break over the holidays as well. So we are pre-preparing these episodes for you. So I don't want to be releasing news episodes that you might not hear for another, month or so, and then it might be out of date. So that's just a little heads up about what is going to be happening on the show for the rest of the year. But if you like those kind of episodes where we do sort of go back and have a look at what the top trends were, top ingredients, and more importantly, what we're going to be seeing more of in 2025, then stick around and make sure that you stay subscribed, because they are all the kinds of episodes that I have planned for you for the rest of the year. All right, now let's get into the news headlines. And there were plenty of things making news in Korea at the moment in relation to the Korean beauty and cosmetics industry. First and foremost is that the domestic cosmetics market in Korea reached 17 trillion won, which is over 12 billion USD at the end of last year. And that was the largest result ever recorded. This year, they have said that they are expecting it to break a new record. So new cosmetics brands and products are pouring in every single day. And the competition is also getting fiercer. So this particular article, which was in the Mail Kyongjae, was saying that differentiated concepts are what is needed to survive for brands. So they were looking at things like exotic packaging, products with unique textures, two-in-one products that have two functions in one. Apparently they are, getting a lot of attention, and we've spoken about a lot of those kind of products on the show before as well. So many good products that help you to condense your skincare routine and do more with less. They also said that products that add creative ideas have become an important factor in highlighting the brand's personality while also delivering pleasure in the process of using the product to the consumer. And I think that's one thing that Korean beauty is very well known for, that Korean beauty does very well, is to create something new, add that dose of excitement and fun, whether that be the product's packaging, the textures, all of the above, doing something a little bit different. But it will be interesting to see when they release the results for the end of this year, how much further over that 12 billion USD the industry domestically in Korea has grown in 2024, because that was obviously 2023's figures. We haven't closed out the year yet, so they can't really release this year's figures yet. But suffice it to say that they are expecting big things. So that is very, very exciting news as well. Now, another thing I came across was a compilation by a company called Beauty Streams of the top trends at Cosmoprof Asia. Now, this is a really big event on the beauty calendar, particularly obviously for brands that are in Asia, that are making products in Asia, targeting the Asian market. So the 5 top trends that they thought were the top trending things were, number 1, eternal youth. So I'm assuming that is going to be going into everything like anti-aging and whatnot. And I feel like that is pretty much always a top trend, particularly in the beauty industry. Like, we've come up with so many different names for it over the years, but at the end of the day, people want to know, how can I look younger for longer? How can I reverse the signs of aging? All of those kind of things. So Eternal Youth was one of them. Dr. AI was the next one. And this one I am definitely going to be going into more detail on when we do some of our forecasting episodes, because this is definitely going to be really, really big. AI in general is already making huge waves in the beauty industry and revolutionizing the way a lot of companies are doing things online through their websites, and how they sort of, share information with their customers as well. So I'm going to go into that one in a little bit more depth, but I'm not surprised to hear that that was trending at Cosmoprof Asia. Number 3, sun care. And again, this is another one that I have kind of already gone, this is huge and it's only going to get bigger. So sun care, again, I mean, that makes sense, right? People in Asia do tend to take their sun protection extremely seriously, and from a very, very young age. But this was one of the top trends this year as well. Number 4 was the return of blush. And I guess if you spend some time on beauty TikTok, you might have noticed that there is a trend doing the rounds at the moment called blush blindness, where people just keep applying like a whole lot of blush. So I feel like blush is obviously back. We have seen it with a lot of the Korean beauty releases this year, particularly for products that are designed to be used for both lip and cheek. And a lot of the trending products in Korea at the moment, some of the dupes that we spoke about on the last episode, are these kind of products. So blush is a big one that's trending at the moment as well. And number 5, acne care. Again, I feel like in the beauty space, acne care is a little bit of an evergreen concept. It doesn't sort of tend to go out of style. And that's just because of how ubiquitous acne is. People tend to have problems with their skin pretty much. If I think about myself, I have literally had problem skin and issues with acne from the age of about 13 onwards. I'm nearly 40. I'm getting up towards my 40s. So, that's how long I've had issues with acne for. So for me, I have had a lifelong interest in acne care products. And I know a lot of other people are the same, even if they maybe didn't have as severe cystic acne as I did. Pimple problems, hormonal issues, things that crop up, the presence of acne and how many people suffer from it is just so great that I feel like it's one of those kind of trends, kind of like anti-aging, that is just always going to be popular. But this year at Cosmoprof Asia was one of the big trends. So the top 5, Eternal Youth, Dr. AI, sun care, the return of blush, and acne care. They were the ones that they identified. Now, another trend that I am a little bit more, not skeptical, but maybe a little bit sadder to see that this is trending, is that cosmetics packaged in small doses are selling like hotcakes in Korea. And one of the reasons that this has been trending, or one of the reasons why people think it's trending, is because people are able to use a lot more products for the same price. So basically, if you're only buying like tiny little doses of each product, you can try out a whole bunch of different things, and that works really well for people in their teens and 20s. In the past, it was kind of like travel kits and whatnot, but now it's been broken down into even smaller versions of the products, from face washes to makeup, all of these kind of things. And this was from an article in the Seoul Kyungjae, and basically they were talking about, according to one retailer, the sale of powder wash products, which is, a type of face wash that you pour the powder out, add water, and then apply it to your face. That increased 55.8% year on year until last month this year. Powder wash products, I absolutely love them. We, when, Style Story used to distribute other brands' products, we had a lot of powder wash products that were very, very popular for years on end, like in our top sellers list all the time, but they weren't individually packaged. And that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest selling points of a powder cleanser and a powder-based product, is that, for 50 grams or so size of product, you get enough washes to last you half a year because it doesn't contain water. So they're a really brilliant type of product. But if they're individually packaged in like tiny little plastic, it doesn't really have the same benefits for the environment, I guess. But it's very, very popular among people in their teens and 20s in Korea, basically because they are, easy to cart around with you and seen as hygienic as well. So that was one of the things that is trending at the moment, small dose cosmetics, basically. And look, I get the appeal, particularly, when you're in your teens and 20s, I guess you do a lot more sort of traveling around and staying at friends' houses and maybe, staying at a boyfriend's house, or, you head on long weekend trips and things like that a lot. You tend to be packing a lot more stuff in your bag. Whether they need to be in these tiny little sachets and packets, though, I'm not so sure. I get the appeal of sachets, particularly when it comes to people trying products before buying the full size. If you can do that, that can definitely cut down on a whole lot of waste. And as we all know, the beauty industry does have a huge problem with waste, but I'm not sure I feel as positively about this. You'll have to come and find me and let me know. Like, is this the kind of thing, do you guys think this is a good thing that they are making all of these products in smaller doses? Is it a bad thing? Would you use this kind of thing? This strikes me as something that is like particularly specific to Korea, and maybe wouldn't sell as well outside Korea, particularly in places like the US, but I might be a little bit off base there. So come and find me and let me know if you think that this is like a trend that you would get behind or not. Now, the other bit of news was an article that I was actually invited to participate in from Media Cat magazine in the UK. And the journalist reached out to me because she was doing an article basically about how social media created beauty's new dialect and how each of the various different platforms, so Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram and whatnot, all have their own distinct languages that are kind of reshaping how beauty is defined and, democratized. So she was saying, Pinterest kind of whispers in soft, attainable aesthetics, while TikTok is like bold, filter heavy, like declarations, and each platform kind of has its own blueprint for what you need to do to kind of go viral. And so that was sort of the angle that she was coming from. And then I had published something about the different terminologies that were trending in the US versus Korea in the beauty industry. And she was really interested to know a little bit more about that, and how that sort of plays into this broader dialogue of what's going on in the beauty industry. And so I mentioned that when it comes to Korean beauty, there's not really a huge difference between what's trending product-wise on the various different platforms. From what I can tell, the brands that have the biggest marketing budgets kind of get the most attention across all platforms. So if they're doing well on TikTok, they tend to also be doing well on Instagram and to the same extent, Pinterest, even if the way the products are talked about and, the styles that are chosen are different. I don't know that there is necessarily a divergence between what is actually trending. And, we were speaking about how there are so many trends now that transcend globally barriers. Once upon a time, what was trending in the US would not have been the same as what was trending in the Middle East, for example, whereas the rise of social media has broken down a lot of those barriers. And I think Korean beauty has played a really big role in that as well. And in the sense of democratizing beauty, Korean beauty has always had better price points really than a lot of comparable Western products, which makes them a lot more accessible for a whole range of people, particularly in countries where, it hasn't historically been as easy for people to get their hands on a lot of the top trending products. And Australia is one of those places. Australia is a little bit of a different scenario from a lot of other markets because we've got this monopoly really of one retailer that basically has exclusive contracts in place for all of the big, well-known beauty brands. They haven't really dabbled in Korean beauty much at all, which has then left the space for all of these other retailers, to flourish and actually, bring people products that are at exceptional price points that they can't necessarily get through other retailers. And I think it's probably similar in other countries as well. Korean beauty, the accessibility of it, particularly now, is something that a lot of people, that's what attracts them to it, particularly in the cost of living crisis. And so we got onto the topic of glass skin. And, the fact that that's kind of really taken on a life of its own overseas. It was trending in Korea and had a moment, but like a lot of domestic trends, it kind of faded away, but then it has really just gone haywire overseas, much like snail mucin. And, it's really transformed the global beauty industry. The K-beauty market obviously reached $91.99 billion in 2022 and is projected to grow 9.3% annually all the way up to 2030. And I also think that the trend for glass skin reflects like a broader shift in consumer preferences as well. We've had all of these kind of trends that are a bit of a flow on from that as well. Things like the clean girl aesthetic and all of those kind of things, which is all about highlighting the skin and less makeup. So it was a really, really interesting discussion. It was a much longer article than that. I will put a link in the show notes if you would like to go and check that out. But yeah, I really enjoyed having the chat because it made me think of things that I haven't necessarily thought of before, but she made very, very good points. So that was a bit of fun. So I will put a link to the show notes for that article as well, which is online through Media Cat magazine in the UK. Now, before we get on to the question of the week, I will just remind you that if you do love Korean beauty products, we would absolutely love for you to try ours. Our brand Jellico is now available in even more places. You can get it at jellico.com online, which is our website, Amazon in Australia and in the US as well. And we've just launched at a new retailer in the US, which is ecosmetics.com. They have a great selection of lots of different Western beauty brands, including some Korean brands. CO Bigelow is our other retailer in the States, and they actually have a store in the West Village in New York. So make sure you pop in there if you are going to be in New York over the holidays. CO Bigelow has the most fantastic window displays as well. So a lot of fun to shop there. We are also available offline at Jardin Pharmacy in Australia as well. So lots of different places that you can go and check out our brand. If you are not in one of those countries and you would like to see our products in your country, one of the ways that you can, help us out is get in touch with your local retailers that you would like to see us in and just let them know about the brand. That's a way that a lot of brands end up in retailers, is because customers actually ask them. Oftentimes people reach out and say, when are you coming to the UK, or when are you coming to Canada? And it helps if you guys let them know that you're looking for us as well. That would be an absolutely massive help. So thank you very much. Shameless little plug. Let us get on to the question of the week. Now, this is an amalgamation of questions because I've had questions come through from our lots of different listeners, but they're kind of getting at the same sort of thing. And so I've put this question together as a bit of a mishmash of different ones, which is, can beauty products exist independently of beauty standards? And I think that that is a really great question because the types of beauty products that exist in every country and in every market are also inherently linked to the beauty standards and ideals of that place. And I think we already discussed this when we were talking about the difference between the top trending keywords for beauty products in Korea versus markets like the US. In the US, obviously the top trending beauty keywords at the moment focus on goals, things like youthful and elastic, as well as targeted functions like wrinkles, irritated skin, collagen, all of that kind of stuff. Whereas in Korea, the top trending keywords tend to be about the well-being of the skin itself, and they focus more on prevention, protection, soothing, and hydration. The other thing is, I think that, there are entire categories of cosmetics that just don't exist in certain markets. So one of the products that I always think of is fake tan. So fake tan is like an absolute staple in places like Australia and I know the UK, maybe less so the US, but I think it certainly exists. And, this is the kind of thing where we get a tan in a bottle and apply it all over ourselves, wait a couple of hours for it to set, or even overnight, wash it off the next day, and you come out with a tan that is not from the sun, it's from a tan in a can, right? So this is the kind of thing that when I explain this to my friends in Korea, they are just like, that is the wildest thing I would have ever heard. Why the hell would anyone want to look tan? And I'm like, that's our beauty ideal. Like, growing up, I was always a bit of an ugly duckling because I had this really, really pale skin, dark hair, and everyone in Australia, the ideal that they want to look like and what is prioritized and highly prized is blonde hair, really tan skin, surfer, beachy kind of vibes. And I'm the kind of person that if I spend 15 minutes in the sun, I freckle, I get red, it's almost like an allergy. Like, it just doesn't really work for me. I'm not built for the sun. I'm the kind of person, I always say this to people, I could lie out in the sun every day for a month and I would not be necessarily that much browner of skin color or more tan. I would just freckle up. Like, there's not a whole lot of point for me in sitting out in the sun all day trying to get a tan, but that is the beauty standard and the beauty ideal where I come from. And, people spend a whole lot of time and money to look like that. Spray tanning booths and, places in Australia are everywhere, and Thursday is kind of well known as being tanning day. So you go on a Thursday, you get your spray tan, you will sleep in it overnight, wash it off on Friday morning, and it'll look perfect by the weekend, which is when everyone wants to head out and about and, go to the beach, do whatever they're going to do. So Thursday is tanning day. And this whole culture just does not exist in Korea. A friend of mine, I think I've told this story a few times on the show, a friend of mine from the Netherlands, when we lived in Korea and were going to uni in Korea, she was like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend's coming to visit me. I desperately need to get my hands on some fake tan. I look so pale. And we were like, okay. So we hit up every single store we could find, and there was not a single one that sold tan in a can. She was devastated. She was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I understood her. Coming from Australia, I was like, oh gosh, dilemma, But for Koreans, it's just not the kind of product that they would ever look for. Even bronzer can be a little bit harder to find. There are contouring palettes and all of these kind of things, but bronzer is just by no means a staple kind of product in Korea, whereas it is in other countries, right? Sun-kissed, all of these kind of terminology that we use. Whereas in Korea, on the other hand, we have all of these tone-up style products, which are, supposed to make your skin look, brighter. Obviously, people stay out of the sun. They don't like that kind of look to it. So there's a whole different beauty ideal and set of standards in place that has deep roots in the country as well. In the same way that a tan in many Western countries signifies having enough leisure time to be able to go out and sit out in the sun and get a tan. You've been on holidays. You're not just working, away in an office somewhere. You've actually had time to get out and go and get a bit of a tan. But it's the same, but the reverse in Korea. The people that could afford to not be outside, not be out working, were the wealthy people in the Joseon dynasty. And so that, then became synonymous with beauty. So I do not think that we can separate beauty standards and the beauty products that exist. And that dynamic really does play out differently between Korea and the Western beauty markets as well. And that's why we see entire categories of product that just don't exist. So I do often get a lot of listener questions about this kind of thing, and I just think that it's very difficult to divorce those. Even these days, more and more people in Korea are tanning themselves. There are tanning salons and things like that. Because there is a subset of people that want that kind of look, that really appreciate that, and that they find that beautiful. But in terms of like a mainstream culture, it's not really mainstream yet. In the same way that I think embracing your natural pale skin is not really mainstream in Australia at the moment. Well, certainly it wasn't when I was living there. And, you know, I think it's still to this day. Anytime I go back to Australia and I look around at friends and family, like people have gone out and gotten a fake tan. Like it's fairly obvious. I can see that that is still the predominant thing. You know, people want to look, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't look healthy. I look sickly if I don't have a tan. Or, you know, people say, oh, I look bigger. I don't look as slim if I'm not tan. So it's all sort of built into this kind of beauty ideal. So I think it's a really interesting topic of conversation. Hopefully for the people that were submitting questions like that, that kind of answers your question. I hope so. All right. Now, if you do like the show and would like to support us, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast as well. That just keeps it in your feed. Now, some K-Beauty products for you to try. I have 2 BB cushion recommendations for you. One is the Age 20s Essence Cover Pact Crystal Shining Drop Edition. And the second one is another Age 20s product. It is their Signature Essence Cover Pact Intense. Okay, so let's start with what are the differences between them. So I feel like the Cover Pact, the Crystal Shining Drop Edition is maybe a lighter coverage, and obviously the Intense is supposed to be, you know, more high coverage. But I would caution, if you are expecting an actually high level of coverage, I think you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. But for me personally, it does strike a good balance. You still do need concealer. It works really, really well with the Just Seek Pro Palette Concealer that I mentioned a few episodes ago. And it gives you that nice dewy and glowy finish. Now, that one only has 6 shades ranging from a 13 to a 31. And that's the one reason that I do always hesitate a little bit to recommend Korean makeup products, particularly BB cushions and BB creams, because I'm aware that they're not going to work for a lot of people. But I also feel like if more people from overseas are aware of the products and want to try them, maybe we can kind of like, you know, encourage the brands to create a wider variety of shades if there is actually enough interest in the products. And we've definitely seen that with a lot of other brands at the moment that are really increasing their shade ranges. This is one of the most popular products on the local market, certainly for people of my age group. So I just feel like it's a shame if more people don't know about them. And, you know, maybe if there is more interest from overseas, that will kind of prompt them to go, hey guys, we need to cater for, you know, a bigger range of people. One of my old law firm colleagues was actually the one that put me onto these. She used to use them religiously, and I sort of shied away from it because I was like, age 20s, that sounds so naff. Like, you know, I don't need to be 20 again, but, you know, it turns out they are really, really great for people that are way past their 20s but have very dry skin. So I can highly recommend these for people that have dry skin for sure. Now, my recommendation for the week for this week is another Korean brand. This is specifically for people that have babies and little kids. The brand is Atopalm. It's specifically formulated for dry and sensitive skin, but it can be used by those with atopic dermatitis, hence the name Atopalm. And it is made by the same parent company that makes the brand Zeroid, which is another one of my favorites. So they have a great range for babies and kids, everything from newborns. They even have scalp lotions and shampoos, cream massage oils, all the way up to a sunscreen cushion compact for kids. And honestly, it makes sunscreen application so much easier for little ones because you can just pat it onto their skin and it doesn't get in their eyes or drip. So that product I can highly recommend. We also always have in my household a thing of their top to toe wash. It's a really, really great gentle wash for kids. So that is my recommendation for the week. Now I'm going to finish it up here. I will be back in your ears with a roundup episode fairly shortly, so don't go too far. Until next time, I will see you on jellico.com.